Last week, Instagram shut down my account over Palestine. That's clearly what happened, as I'll explain. And there was a wider point here about censorship by Meta of pro-Palestinian content on both Instagram and Facebook, particularly, I would note, with Palestinians being targeted. I'm using my own experience as something of a hook. I was trying to use my Instagram on my phone, as you do, scrolling, looking at what was going on, and it just stopped working. You know, you try to get it up to date, and instead I was just getting it freezing and an error message. So I logged into my email, and in big red letters, it read, "Take action or lose access to Owen Jones Journo." That's my handle. It went on to say, "Hi Owen Jones Journo, your Instagram account has been suspended. This is because your account or activity on it doesn't follow our community standards on dangerous individuals and organizations. If you think that we made a mistake, you have until the 8th of October 2025 to appeal." Now then I went on to submit an appeal. This was, I know, rather ominously phrased when I did that, because it said, if we find that your account doesn't follow our community standards, it will be permanently disabled and you won't be able to appeal again. So sudden irreversible death, years of building up an Instagram profile, building up a follower base, making contacts with people all over the world, that would all be erased. It didn't actually tell me what content was the problem, but it did say that it was because, the suspension, because your account or activity on it doesn't follow our community standards on dangerous individuals and organizations. Well, my content is almost exclusively about Palestine, of course. So this would suggest my account had been flagged on the grounds that I was judged to support, for example, Hamas, which is obviously a groundless allegation. I clicked on Meta's community standards, which explained this particular policy, and it read, "In an effort to prevent and disrupt real-world harm, we do not allow organizations or individuals that proclaim a violent mission or are engaged in violence to have a presence on our platforms. We assess these entities based on their behavior, both online and offline. Most significantly, their ties to violence. Under this policy, we designate individuals, organizations, and networks of people." The IDF obviously would fail that particular policy if it was applied consistently. Now, look, this went on to explain entities which engage in serious offline harm, including organizing or advocating for violence against civilians, repeatedly dehumanizing or advocating for harm against people based on protected characteristics, or engaging in systematic criminal operations. It also says, in addition, we do not allow content that glorifies, supports, or represents events that Meta designates as violating violent events, including terrorist attacks, hate events, multiple victim violence, or attempted multiple victim violence, serial murders, or hate crimes. Now, obviously, none of this applies to me. What we do know is that pro-Israel activists, hardline Zionists, target those in the pro-Palestinian space who oppose the genocide, who oppose apartheid, who support Palestinian national self-determination. They smear us as being violent or supportive of violence, every accusation, of course, being a confession on their part. I mean, they're literally just rolling around in violence and incitement to violence. Anyway, they report us to Meta in an effort to silence us and to shut us down. In this case, my account was reinstated. It was suggested to me it was an error. Well, intriguingly, on the very day that my account was suspended, the as ever brilliant Dropsite News published a report entitled "Leaked Data Reveals Massive Israeli Campaign to Remove Pro-Palestine Posts on Facebook and Instagram." This is what it said. "A sweeping crackdown on posts on Instagram and Facebook that are critical of Israel or even vaguely supportive of Palestinians was directly orchestrated by the government of Israel, according to internal metadata obtained by Dropsite News. The data show that Meta has complied with 94% of takedown requests issued by Israel since October 7th, 2023. That is wild. Israel's bombarding Instagram with takedown requests for content, criticizing Israel, or just being vaguely supportive of Palestinians. And Meta is overwhelmingly complying with that. Dropsite News say that Israel is the biggest originator of takedown requests globally by far. Strikingly, they say Meta has widened the net of posts it automatically removes, creating, in the words of DSN, what can be called the largest mass censorship operation in modern history. The report finds that what is so unique is that while normally government requests for posts to be taken down focus on content created by their own citizens in their own countries, Israel's online censorship campaign focuses on countries outside of Israel. Furthermore, it notes Meta is training an AI program and it will in future moderate content automatically based on this previous behavior, so permanently baking in pro-Israel censorship. Now, Dropsite News know about this because of whistleblowers. They say Israel's requests have overwhelmingly targeted users in Arab and Muslim majority countries in what's described as a massive effort to silence criticism of Israel. They report the data also show that Meta removed over 90,000 posts to comply with takedown requests submitted by the Israeli government in an average of 30 seconds. Now, previously, right towards the beginning of the genocide, at the end of December 2023, Human Rights Watch released a report finding that, in their words, Meta's policies and practices have been silencing voices in support of Palestine and Palestinian human rights on Instagram and Facebook in a wave of heightened censorship of social media beginning on the 7th of October. In those first 2 months, Human Rights Watch documented over 1,050 takedowns and other suppression of content on Instagram and Facebook that had been posted by Palestinians and their supporters. They specifically noted that included human rights abuses. Indeed, of the 1,050 cases reviewed, 1,049 involved peaceful content in support of Palestine that was censored or otherwise unduly suppressed. A further report, which came out at the end of last year by BBC Arabic, World Service and Monitoring journalists in December, found that Facebook severely restricted the ability of Palestinian news outlets to, in the BBC's words, reach an audience during the Israel-Gaza war, as they misleadingly describe it. They found that newsrooms in the Palestinian territories, that's Gaza and the West Bank, suffered a steep drop in audience engagement since the genocide began, with Meta claiming any implication it was deliberately suppressing specific voices was unequivocally false. Oh, really? Well, interesting. Now, the data on 20 Facebook pages belonging to key Palestinian-based news organizations showed their engagement plummeted with a 77% collapse after 7th of October. Palestine TV, for example, had 5.8 million followers on Facebook when the study was done, but there was a 60% collapse in the number of people seeing their posts. Yet at the same time, the Facebook pages of Yediot Aharonot, Israel Hayom, and Channel 13, Israeli media outlets, whose content was also overwhelmingly war-related, had audience engagement surging by nearly 37%. A Meta employee leaked internal documents to these journalists about a change in the algorithm, toughening the moderation of Palestinians who commented on Instagram posts. And they said within a week of the Hamas attack, the code was changed, essentially making it more aggressive towards Palestinian people. Meta told the BBC it was down to a spike in hateful content from the Palestinian territories, to which you can only say, have you seen the content coming out of Israeli media organizations? Hateful is quite the euphemism. It's clear what's going on here. Meta is orchestrating massive censorship of pro-Palestinian content, which of course disproportionately hits Palestinians. I managed to get my ban overturned, but what about those who don't? It's clear there is a systematic attempt to silence the truth. Accordingly, we need to speak ever louder. Please like and subscribe. Do share the video. Leave your comments. All good for getting the message out. Help us take on the pro-genocide media and this censorship at patreon.com/OwenJones84. Listen to us on the podcast. I'll speak to you in a bit. That was my cat.